My name is Dr. Gitter. I'm a professor here at Towson University. I've done research in Latin America for the last 8 years. Over the last year, I've been working with the United Nations International Trade Center, looking at the effect of quinoa prices on families that grow quinoa in Peru. And I'm currently doing a study looking at the effect of rising quinoa prices on household income in Peru too.
Quinoa, commonly referred to as goosefoot, is an edible, nutrient-rich grain that is native to the Andean region of South America. The recorded use of quinoa as a food crop dates back about 5,000 years to the people living in what is modern-day Bolivia. It was also heavily farmed by the Incas, who considered it to be a sacred plant. Quinoa's popularity is due in part to its high nutritional value. Incan warriors ate quinoa to sustain themselves during battles and long marches. NASA has also realized the potential of quinoa and has stated that it would be ideal for long-duration space flights. Today, quinoa is mostly grown in the mountains and coastal valleys of Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, and Chile.
How has the quinoa industry affected South American farmers?
All right, you're going to jump right in and talk about quinoa. So quinoa is grown not in every South American country. It's grown in Peru, Ecuador, and Bolivia.
Peru and Bolivia are the leading exporters of quinoa, with Ecuador following closely behind. According to the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, Peru exported 41.2 thousand metric tons of quinoa in 2011, as opposed to the 7.3 thousand metric tons in 1970, before the quinoa boom hit. In 2011, Bolivia exported 38.3 thousand metric tons versus the 9.7 metric tons exported in 1970.
I think there's this question about how is it affecting farmers. It's more, you need to know a little bit more of the background. So quinoa traditionally was this grain that indigenous farmers ate and didn't have much of a market outside of just people eating it within those countries until about 10 years ago. And then about 10 years ago, Americans decided that quinoa was the greatest thing ever. Quinoa is higher than protein than most grains. It's gluten-free, and it became this hip superfood that you could find in Whole Foods or in Trader Joe's. And it wasn't really, you couldn't find quinoa around the United States until about 2007, 2008. And at that time, once Americans got a taste for quinoa and started buying more and more of it, the price of quinoa went up substantially. Now, as an economist, we would say, well, this could have two potential effects, right? If you want to buy something, right, if you want to buy quinoa, and you're somebody in Peru and Bolivia, and all of a sudden all these Americans come in and start buying quinoa, the price is going up, that's bad for you. You want to buy something, the price goes up, that's bad. Now, on the other hand, if you're a poor farmer and you're selling quinoa, and all of a sudden all these, gluten-free Americans who want a super protein-rich, nutritious food come and buy quinoa, your price is going way up. You're selling something, the price is going way up. That's great.
This high demand of quinoa has led to a major increase in the export price. The quinoa export price is measured in US dollars per kilogram, and in 1970, quinoa was exported at 8 cents a kilogram. In 2010, the FAO reported the crop reached $3.03 a kilogram. Within a 40-year period, the export price of quinoa grew approximately 3,600%. US Customs reported that in 2010, the United States imported 26.25 million pounds, and this jumped to roughly 68 million pounds in 2013.
And so, if you want to figure out, well, what are the total effects on, on Peruvians, on Bolivians, on people from Ecuador, you've got to look at the effect for the sellers and the effect for the buyers, and think, well, who do we want to benefit more, the buyers or the sellers? And if you look at the data, at least in Peru, which I have, and I'm doing a research study currently on it, it suggests that the people who grow quinoa are some of the poorest people in not only in Peru, but in all of South America. Same thing with Bolivia. And so they're seeing large gains, but the people who are buying it generally don't buy that much. It's not, it's not like rice or like corn. It's not 90% of their diet. It's just something a little bit extra that people add. And the price is, it's going up for them, but it's not having this huge effect. So I'm doing a research study looking at all these effects. I haven't released the research study yet, so I can't go into more specifics, but that's, sort of the overall view of what's going on in the quinoa industry for people in Peru and for people in Bolivia.
The Bolivian land used for the production of quinoa has increased from 240 square miles to 400 square miles in only 5 years. This is making it difficult to grow a quality product. According to Romero, a quinoa expert, quinoa goes hand in hand with the natural fertilizers that llamas produce, and there must be a nutritional crossing between the two. Farmers have not been able to grow with the proper nutrition since the rapid increase in demand. These agricultural countries are not able to rotate their crops and are starting to use chemical fertilizers, causing a depletion of the soil for future agricultural growth. Quinoa is starting to spread widely and take over fields of beans, potatoes, and oats. The crop spreading is making it more difficult for these countries to provide enough crops for them to survive.
And last but not least, what does the future of quinoa look like to you?
So with any good, when there's a price rise, you always expect in economics that somebody's going to figure out a way to start producing it out. And so whether that's more parts of Peru, whether it's the coastal parts of Peru, whether that's the United States, whether it's India, and what happens when another country starts producing a whole bunch of it? That's probably where the price is going to fall. Or people will decide, you know what? Yeah, quinoa, there are other grains out there. Quinoa is too expensive. I'm going to start eating teff, which is what they eat in Ethiopia. I'm going to start eating amaranth. I'm going to start, eating these other grains, and then the price might fall. So if that happens, the farmers that were making a lot of money, their income's going to fall. If they've made a lot of investment, they're going to be out in a tough place. The good news is, unlike some other crops, there's not a huge investment you need to make with quinoa. You just need to plant a little bit more land. And so it's sort of more of a year-to-year thing, as opposed to if you're growing coffee and you've got to plant these trees and wait several years, or you're growing, you're growing apples or something like that, and you've got to wait for the production and make a huge investment. So I think overall it'll be all right.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks so much.
Of course.
All right.
Overall, the quinoa boom has caused quite a stir in South America. Despite price rise and potential negative environmental issues, Dr. Gitter and many other experts are showing a positive future for this super grain.